It's early May of 1937, and on the ground at Naval Air Station Lakehurst, the air is charged with excitement. Families, journalists, and local onlookers have gathered to witness something extraordinary. The arrival of the German airship Hindenburg, a sleek giant of the skies floating above New Jersey's horizon. There's a crackle of cameras, soft murmurs in the crowd, and a sense that history is drifting silently toward them. Meanwhile, high above, inside the Hindenburg's luxurious passenger cabins, travelers are just as eager. They've enjoyed days of fine dining, comfortable accommodations, and an unrivaled airborne panorama of the Atlantic. Now, as they finally near their destination, an undercurrent of impatience runs through them. Their voyage has been almost too smooth, too uneventful. They are ready to step off this airborne hotel and breathe the American air. Then, without warning, it happens. A sudden, blinding burst of flame erupts from the sleek hull, swallowing the tail of the great ship in an instant. Shock and confusion grip the crowd below as scorching fire streaks across the Hindenburg's frame. Passengers, crew members, everyone on board is plunged into a nightmare scenario no one could have anticipated. The cheers, the calm, anticipation are all extinguished in a single terrible moment. Just then, into this chaos and disbelief comes the voice of someone who was there, an eyewitness whose words would become etched into history.
To the mooring mast, all the humanity and all the passengers screaming around it. I told you, I can't talk to people. There's friends around there. I can't talk, ladies and gentlemen. Honest, it's just laying down massive smoking wreckage. And everybody can't hardly breathe and talk and screaming. Lady, I'm sorry. Honestly, I can hardly breathe. I'm going to step inside.
Welcome back to Compelling History. Today, we'll be discussing one of the first major air disasters in aviation history, the 1937 fire that engulfed the Zeppelin airship Hindenburg, leaving its passengers with no other option but to jump for their lives. How could the routine voyage of the most advanced airship of its time end in a fiery inferno? If you're new here, my name is Jonathan, and I release videos every week exploring different events, places, or people from throughout history. Our previous video delved into the tragic bombing of Pan Am Flight 103, and we have plenty of other videos covering topics such as the life of Sam Cooke or the history of the Cuban Missile Crisis. I love learning about history and sharing what I've discovered, so if you have any topics you'd like to see covered, please let me know in the comments below. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy it, and don't forget to subscribe if you love learning about history as much as I do. You won't want to miss future videos. Towering over cities like floating skyscrapers, Zeppelins once ruled the skies. Their golden age was brief but spectacular, and no airship epitomized their grandeur more than the Hindenburg. The story of Zeppelin airships begins in the late 19th century with Count Ferdinand von Zeppelin, a German aristocrat and former army officer. Observing the use of hot air balloons during the American Civil War inspired Zeppelin to envision an airship that could revolutionize long-distance travel. His vision began materializing in 1900 with the launch of LZ-1, the first rigid airship, featuring a lightweight aluminum frame covered by a fabric envelope and containing multiple hydrogen-filled gas cells for lift. LZ-1 introduced a new era of flight. Though its maiden voyage lasted only 18 minutes, the LZ-1 demonstrated the potential of rigid airships and laid the foundation for Zeppelin's company, Luftschiffbau Zeppelin. The term Zeppelin became synonymous with rigid airships due to Count Zeppelin's pioneering work and the success of his designs. Rigid airships featured a revolutionary framework of girders and rings, allowing them to maintain their shape without relying on internal air pressure. This structural innovation enabled much larger airships, improving payload capacity and range. Early commercial flights began in 1910 through Deutsche Luftschiffahrts AG, DLAG, the world's first airline and revenue service. By mid-1914, DLAG had carried over 10,000 passengers on more than 1,500 flights. World War I expanded the role of Zeppelins as military tools, where they were used for reconnaissance and bombing missions. Although their strategic impact was limited, they captivated the imagination of those who witnessed them. After the war, Zeppelin development faced restrictions, but later resurged in the 1920s with notable airships like the LZ-127 Graf Zeppelin, which achieved milestones in intercontinental travel and reliability. The Graf Zeppelin's success paved the way for the construction of its successor, the Hindenburg. The Hindenburg, officially designated LZ-129, was conceived as the pinnacle of Zeppelin engineering. plans for the airship emerged in 1929, but its design was heavily revised following the disastrous crash of the British R-101 in 1930. The tragedy, caused by structural failures and adverse weather on its maiden international flight, led to a re-evaluation of airship safety and design, resulting in improved structural integrity and stricter testing for the new project. Originally intended to use helium, a non-flammable lifting gas, the Hindenburg was forced to rely on hydrogen due to U.S. export restrictions under the Helium Control Act of 1927. Despite the dangers, hydrogen's superior lift allowed for expanded passenger accommodations and operational range. Constructed between 1931 and 1936 at the Zeppelin dockyards in Friedrichshafen, Germany, the Hindenburg's frame was crafted from duralumin, a lightweight aluminum alloy, and incorporated 15 massive ring bulkheads to support 16 hydrogen gas cells. Its exterior skin, made of cotton treated with reflective materials, shielded the gas cells from ultraviolet and infrared radiation. Designed for luxury, the airship's interior featured 25 two-passenger cabins, a dining room, a lounge, and a writing room adorned with murals and panoramic windows. Even a pressurized smoking room was included, with strict precautions to prevent accidents. The Hindenburg's maiden flight on March 4, 1936, marked the beginning of its short but illustrious career. After a series of test flights, the airship entered service with Deutsche Zeppelin Reederei, offering transatlantic journeys. With a cruising speed of 84 miles per hour, it could traverse the 4,000-mile route between Frankfurt and Lakehurst in New Jersey in under 3 days. The Hindenburg completed 17 transatlantic crossings during its inaugural season, carrying nearly 2,800 passengers and setting new standards for air travel. The airship was not just a mode of transportation, but a spectacle of human ingenuity. Passengers marveled at views from observation windows while enjoying unparalleled comfort. However, beneath its elegance, the Hindenburg's reliance on hydrogen represented a latent danger, a compromise that would ultimately seal its fate. As dawn broke on May 3, 1937, the bustling airfield in Frankfurt, Germany, was alive with excitement. The massive Hindenburg loomed over the terminal, its sleek, silvery frame symbolizing a new era of air travel. Passengers arrived with a mix of eagerness and trepidation, each carrying dreams of the future as they boarded the pride of German engineering. Among the 97 people on board were an eclectic mix of notable figures, adventurers, and professionals, all drawn to the allure of cutting-edge innovation and luxury. Ferdinand Lamo Peter Belin Jr., a Yale graduate and aspiring diplomat, stood among them. Having spent the past year studying at the Sorbonne in Paris, Belin was returning to the United States on the Hindenburg's inaugural North American flight of the 1937 season. A licensed pilot and aviation enthusiast, Belin had meticulously prepared for the journey, immersing himself in the technical marvels of Zeppelin engineering. Another notable passenger, Nelson Morris, a wealthy Chicago businessman and Army Reserve officer, had persuaded his close friend Bert Dolan to join him for the transatlantic journey. The two planned to surprise Dolan's family by arriving home early for Mother's Day. Meanwhile, Hermann Dohner, a German businessman based in Mexico, was traveling with his wife and 3 of their children, introducing his family to the wonders of airship travel, despite his wife's apprehensions. As passengers settled into their luxurious accommodations, the Hindenburg lifted off with near-silent grace. Inside, the atmosphere was both celebratory and relaxed. Gourmet meals were served on fine china in the dining room, while the observation deck offered panoramic views of the earth below. Passengers could stroll the promenade, enjoy live music, or lounge in the smoking room, a pressurized innovation that allowed even chain smokers like Nelson Morris to indulge mid-flight. For the Dohner children, the journey was an adventure. They played with toys and marveled at the ship's immense size and engineering. The transatlantic voyage was smooth, though slowed by strong headwinds. Passengers like Morris and Dolan socialized in the smoking room, while others, like Belin, admired the quiet efficiency of the engines. The diners, occupying a newly added family-sized cabin, spent time enjoying the ship's amenities, though Mrs. Dohner often knitted nervously in the lounge. Despite the weather's occasional grayness, spirits remained high as the airship approached its destination. By the afternoon of May 6th, the Hindenburg was running hours behind schedule. As it reached the New York skyline, passengers crowded to the windows for a breathtaking view of the bustling city. Ships in the harbor saluted with whistles, their steam visible even from the airship's altitude. Captain Max Pruss decided to delay landing at Lakehurst, New Jersey, due to thunderstorms in the area. Instead, the Hindenburg cruised along the Jersey shore, providing passengers a scenic detour as they waited for weather conditions to improve. Finally, at around 7 p.m., the Hindenburg was cleared to land. Passengers gathered near observation windows, eager to disembark. The donors took seats in the dining room, with Mr. Donor briefly stepping away to retrieve a roll of film for his camera. Morris and Dolan stood in the starboard lounge, watching the landing preparations and flashes of lightning in the distance. Peter Balin, ever the aviation enthusiast, positioned himself at a window to observe the landing process. As the airship approached the mooring mast, crew members dropped landing ropes to the ground crew below. Suddenly, a flicker of flame appeared near the stern, and chaos erupted. Within seconds, the Hindenburg transformed into a blazing inferno, its hydrogen-filled cells igniting in rapid succession. Flames roared through the ship's structure, sending passengers and crew scrambling for their lives. Peter Bellin, gripping a support post as the floor tilted, smashed through a plastic window to escape, landing relatively unscathed. Nelson Morris leapt from a window, navigating a fiery maze of girders to safety, though his friend Bert Dolan perished in the wreckage. Matilda Daner heroically dropped her two sons, Walter and Werner, through a window to safety before leaping herself. Tragically, her daughter Irene and husband Herman did not survive. Werner Franz, the 14-year-old cabin boy, narrowly escaped by kicking open a supply hatch and jumping moments before the ship's collapse. In just 34 seconds, the Hindenburg was reduced to a smoldering skeleton. Ground crew members and journalists rushed to aid survivors, their efforts immortalized by Herbert Morrison's haunting broadcast.
All the humanity and all the passengers screaming around here. I told you, I can't even talk to people and friends around there. I can't talk, ladies and gentlemen. Honest, it's just laying there massive smoking wreckage. And everybody can't hardly breathe and talk and screaming. Lady, I'm sorry.
While the inferno may have only lasted 34 seconds, those moments were a chaotic scramble for survival. As the Hindenburg collapsed in flames, survivors, passengers, and crew alike leapt from the airship's smoldering frame, some engulfed in flames themselves. The response on the ground was immediate. Naval personnel stationed at the Lakehurst airfield and local civilians rushed into the blaze with little concern for their safety. Witnesses described seeing crew members helping passengers escape through shattered windows, and even the Hindenburg's chief steward, Heinrich Kubis, pulling survivors from the wreckage. Remarkably, of the 97 people aboard, 62 survived. Many credited their survival to the relatively low altitude of the Hindenburg during its landing attempt, approximately 200 feet. Those who jumped early avoided the worst of the flames. However, on the ground, there were additional injuries among the Navy personnel and spectators who had gathered to watch the airship's arrival. The final toll was grim: 36 fatalities, including 13 passengers, 22 crew members, and 1 worker on the ground. Injuries ranged from severe burns to fractures and lacerations. The surviving crew and passengers were taken to local hospitals, where the stories of their harrowing escapes began to emerge. As soon as the flames were extinguished, attention turned to the question of why. The U.S. Department of Commerce launched an immediate investigation, joined by German officials and representatives of the Zeppelin company. Eyewitness testimony suggested that the fire started near the tail of the ship, with many reporting a bright flash before the flames engulfed the craft. Initial theories ranged from sabotage to mechanical failure. The Zeppelin company, eager to protect its reputation, leaned heavily on the possibility of foul play. The sabotage hypothesis gained traction initially, with figures like Hugo Eckener and Charles Rosendahl suggesting the possibility of a deliberate act. Suspicion fell on Joseph Spa, a passenger who made frequent visits to feed his dog, and even on Erich Spehl, a rigger whose girlfriend allegedly held anti-Nazi sentiments. However, no solid evidence of sabotage was ever discovered, and the theory eventually fell out of favor. Other possibilities explored included engine sparks, lightning strikes, and even structural weaknesses, but none provided a definitive explanation. The most widely accepted theory points to a static spark igniting leaking hydrogen. Investigators concluded that thunderstorms earlier in the day had contributed to a buildup of static electricity on the airship's skin. As the Hindenburg approached the mooring mast, its landing ropes created a grounding effect, generating a spark that ignited the hydrogen leaking from a compromised gas cell near the rear of the craft. Laboratory experiments later supported this hypothesis, demonstrating how static discharge under similar conditions could ignite hydrogen. The wreckage was a haunting sight, twisted aluminum girders scattered across the landing field, still smoldering. Crews worked quickly to remove the debris. Over 1,500 personnel, including soldiers, sailors, and Marines, were deployed to secure the site and prevent looting. Curious civilians climbed fences and evaded blockades to collect souvenirs, leading to heightened security measures. Both American and German investigators examined the wreckage, photographs, and film footage to piece together the chain of events leading to the disaster. Their reports highlighted the deadly combination of static electricity, flammable hydrogen, and design flaws in the airship's construction. After the investigations concluded, salvageable materials were sent back to Germany for recycling, and the site was cleared. A simple concrete pad with a bronze plaque now marks the spot where the Hindenburg's gondola came to rest. Dedicated on the 50th anniversary of the disaster in 1987, this memorial stands as a solemn reminder of one of aviation history's darkest moments. Today, Hangar No. 1, originally intended to house the Hindenburg, remains a National Historic Landmark and part of pre-registered tours hosted by the Navy Lakehurst Historical Society. The legacy of the Hindenburg endures, both as a cautionary tale and as a vital chapter in the story of lighter-than-air flight. Thank you so much for sticking around until the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed learning about what happened to the Hindenburg. I used a website to gather much of the information on the passengers. It has fantastic details about everyone involved in the disaster, so be sure to check it out if you want to learn more about the people who lived through it. I have it linked in the description below. If you enjoyed this video and want to explore more historical figures, places, and events, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. We'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below to let us know which topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes. Your support makes this channel possible, and we're excited to keep sharing incredible stories with you.